Welcome to the Let's Chew podcast presented by Gulfood, the largest annual F&B sourcing event in the world. I'm your host, Juwaria Hirsi, bringing you compelling stories and insights to a wide range of topics in the food and drinks industry, from farming, behind the scenes, to the culinary world, and to foods we simply love to chew on. In this podcast series, we speak to people, brands, and businesses across the food and drinks spectrum to find out more about why they do what they do and how, in their own way, they're championing change and shifting the future of food and drink. Trust me, there's so much more, so listen to the Let's Chew podcast on our website, gulfood.com, and subscribe to our newsletter for the latest updates in food. Welcome to Season 2 of the Let's Chew podcast. As always, I'm your host, Juwaria Hirsi. So today we're diving into the fascinating intersection of technology and sustainability with Erin Grover. She is a distinguished member of the World Economic Forum's Crypto Sustainability Coalition. Erin's expertise lies in advising on emerging technologies for authentic carbon impact, food security, and regenerative supply chain transparency. She has a background spanning with international services with organizations like the United Nations, and she brings a wealth of experience to the table. So join us as we explore the innovative ways Erin is leveraging technology to drive sustainability practices across the entire supply chain. And we're going to be talking about agriculture to climate change and digital assets. Welcome to the show, Erin. I hope you are doing great today, and thank you so much for joining us on the Let's Chew podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
It's a pleasure. So let's just get started. If you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey and how you found yourself working at the intersection of technology and sustainability in the world of food.
Okay. So I have spent the past 20 years building to this moment. And at different times, it didn't seem like it was coherent or there was a thread, but looking back, there definitely is. So I started out spending my 20s working for the UN and different NGOs and places like Afghanistan, Nepal, East Timor, Cambodia. And at the beginning of that period, I was actually living with a village of farmers in the Himalayas for about a year. In Nepal. Life just put me there.
Yeah.
And, at the time, I didn't really think it would be the driving inspiration for my career, but it is now because once you live with a village of farmers,
You're automatically.
And, I don't know their struggles well enough because I'm not them, but I've seen it from the front row. Understanding how hard it is, how backbreaking it is, especially when you're a smallholder farmer and not doing industrial farming.
Okay.
Right? So these people were very good to me and took me in like their family. So in my career since then, I've always been wondering, how can I give back to communities like theirs? And I've always had a soft spot in my heart for farmers. And pretty much I ended up working for NGOs for 10 years, but then in my 30s, I fell into blockchain technology. And when I first understood blockchain technology, my first thought was wow, this can provide transparency in the NGO world for proof of work, for distribution of funds. The NGO world has its issues, and one of the biggest challenges is that people don't know if the funds actually get to the place during different tragedies like Haiti or Nepal, no one really knew if the funds got there or not, and there's still reports of that not happening, right? Yeah. So with blockchain technology, you can show that the funds actually get to the people who need it the most. So when I understood that, I was wow, that's powerful. And one day I would love to take that technology and apply it to situations I saw in my 20s, right, in a new way.
Yes.
So anyway, I've been working with blockchain technology and now AI between a number of spaces in sustainability, but they're all around smallholder farmers and food, right? So I guess, over the past several years, like 3-4 years, I've been working on different case studies for smallholder farmers using these technologies between Africa and India especially. And it's really exciting because it's brought me to the intersection of food security and climate solutions.
Okay. So I just want to know more about how you're aiding those smallholder farmers, and if you can give some of the case studies that you've just mentioned, that we can get a better idea of your kind of like your scope of work and how it's impacting and being very helpful for the smallholder farmers.
So I originally learned about one of the world's first case studies that was set up by a woman named Geneviève Levi that actually put smallholder farmers in Haiti onto blockchain for transparency of the supply chain, but also for locking in their rates.
Okay.
So with blockchain technology, you can make sure that every point in the supply chain, every transaction, that the farmer at the back end gets a cut no matter what, because it's locked in with the smart contract. Like no one can go back and change it. Right?
Okay.
So her case study actually got mangoes to go from Haiti to America for the first time without going through the middlemen in the Dominican Republic. Now, her profits from that case study for the farmers went up between 700 and 900%. That inspiration took me to India, where I ended up advising a similar pilot that had like 20,000 farmers using blockchain every day for their market transactions. The same thing happened. The profits went up between 700 to 900%.
Okay.
Which is hugely powerful because, not only is it giving farmers more profit like they deserve, right? It's also solving this issue of like, you hear people say, well, farmers need subsidies. They need government subsidies.
Yeah.
And you know what? If you actually pay farmers what they're supposed to get paid, they won't need those subsidies as much.
True. I agree. Yeah.
So that's one case study. And then in that process, I had a thought. I thought to myself, what about this thing called carbon, right? This is like 3 years ago. I'm like, there's this thing called soil carbon. There's a market called carbon and voluntary carbon credits.
Yes.
I don't know about it, but I need to figure it out, because if we could compensate these smallholder farmers with an additional income stream for their carbon credits, that's even more powerful.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to ask you, what is carbon and what is carbon credit for those of us who have no clue?
Right. So carbon is, we hear about it a lot more now, I believe. I'm in the bubble of that world, but I think more people are starting to finally hear about it. You get articles in Rolling Stone about it, New York Times, right? But carbon is held in the soil, right? And when it's released into the air, it causes issues, right? It's hurting the atmosphere. It's changing the weather patterns in the world. It's affecting farming, right? Because it's changing the weather.
Yes.
And we only, have so much carbon in the air that we can take while still being able to survive here, right? And more carbon in the air means more trapped greenhouse gases, and we can't see the temperature of the planet go up much more and still be sustainable, right? So what happens is industrial farming kills the soil, right? It's just not a natural process. It's not working with the land. And more carbon is released into the air because of industrial farming.
Okay.
Now, the practices of smallholder farmers actually keeps the carbon in the soil, right?
Okay.
If done right. You'll sometimes hear a term called like regenerative farming, where you're, if you're doing it right, you're continuously like capturing carbon over time. So there's like regenerative farming, and then there's industrial farming.
Yes.
Now, we're in the midst of a food crisis because we have a soil crisis. So about half the world's soil has been destroyed because of industrial farming.
Oh.
Half the world's soil.
Yes.
Okay. If we keep going at this rate, we're not using regenerative practices and mostly industrial farming. We are going to have at this moment, we have about 60 years of healthy soil remaining for the whole planet.
60 years.
60 years.
Okay.
So I'm more concerned about the soil crisis than I am about the carbon crisis and the climate crisis, because at the same time, like, they're tied together.
Mm.
So if we're doing the healthy soil practices, regenerative farming, we'll capture the carbon, right?
Yeah.
But if we keep going at this rate, 60 years means only 60 harvests left for humanity.
Wow, that's so alarming.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are some links and movies I can send you later, right? And for your listeners.
Yes.
But we have to change now. And it's like, look at Europe and the EU, right? They're working on implementing regenerative reporting for supply chains. So that means that now like 5,000 global corporations that all import goods like produce, coffee, cacao, things like that to Europe, they have to start reporting everything about their supply chain, what's regenerative, what's not. And the track, we'll see if it happens, is, over the coming years, like the EU will tighten down and start to find companies that aren't using healthy regenerative practices within their supply chain.
Okay. That's good. So what can we do? And what are you doing about leading the soil crisis?
Oh God, I wish I had all the answers. I'm just one person. Like,
as a collective, what can we do?
So
apart from smallholder farmers?
I mean, you have awareness, people like us getting together and talking and spreading that awareness. I'm here in the UAE, and my hope is that I meet the right people and they listen. And I think this is one of the most open-minded governments in the world right now.
Yes.
So, I'm here. I've been here for a couple of years now, and I plan to stay here for a while, and hopefully more ears are open to this message. But it's going to take systemic change, and it's going to take governments and major stakeholders in this world to change the system, right?
But if you had the power to, what would you actually, not a step by step, but things that need to change in the next few years? That's a must. What would they be?
For me, in my world, I work with a lot of impact investors and a lot of companies that are doing good work, right? So a part of it is making sure that those companies get funding.
Okay.
We have the technology and we have the talent to be doing this. They need more funding now.
Okay.
And the money is here. I think there's fear from investors because this is all new, these types of investments, but we have to now. We have 60 years of harvest, right? So there's that. And we need to train people at the same time. We have the genius and the technology and the money, right? But we need more people to be trained. What's happening right now, schools, kids need to understand what's going on. And in this sector, this whole impact climate, it's growing exponentially, right? And it'll continue to do so as we see more global disasters and more fear, right? So preparing today's youth to be the leaders in this field of sustainability, it's super important, right?
Right.
And it's just regulation, real regulation, right? And then my hope is that, some of the most powerful people and companies in the world really start to take action now. Some of them are, and some of them aren't. So we'll see how it goes. But we don't have time to waste. And one of my biggest complaints
What is it?
is that people just are not moving fast enough right now. So
Okay.
I was talking to somebody too yesterday, and we have this topic that comes up a lot called SDGs.
Yes.
Right. And we have these global NGOs, and a lot of people are like, let's just do all the SDGs now. We get as many SDGs into our projects and our investments. And I had the realization yesterday in this conversation, like, we need to prioritize the SDGs that are going to be the most impactful. Because there's like, how many SDGs? Like 17, I forget the number. But like, my belief down to my core now that I've been doing this work for a while is once you start with that intersection of the smallholder farmers for food and climate and community restoration, community prosperity in the global South, that's going to address a lot of those SDGs anyway. So could we get priorities?
Get the priorities right.
Yeah.
Okay, and you speak a lot about the blockchain technologies. Can you tell us what are they? Like, what blockchain are you using, and how is that helping the smallholder farmers? Like, what technologies?
Okay, so what I advise on is the combination of blockchain technology with AI at the moment.
Okay.
And using that to enhance practices in the field, right? So that combination of human and technology. And for people who don't understand what blockchain is, it doesn't mean it's crypto, for one. The way I love to use blockchain has nothing to do with crypto.
Okay.
Right? So blockchain is an immutable ledger. Once the information is in the blockchain, once transactions happen, once there's data, no one can go back
and change it. Okay.
Because it is about consensus. It's every transaction has to be approved by every supercomputer, right? There are all these kind of supercomputers, we can say, just to keep it basic.
Yeah.
Thousands around the world that are holding the ledger of the blockchain that is public. All those computers have to be in agreement with every transaction. And it's not behind closed doors.
Okay.
It's incredibly powerful, right?
Yes.
Banks have been operating with ledgers behind closed doors from the beginning.
Is public. Yeah.
Look at what happened in 2008. This is the problem, right? Bitcoin was born in 2008. Interesting timing, right? So, so take that and apply it to what I do with the farmers. So that means every transaction, you can see it on the blockchain, okay? And all the supercomputers are having to agree on every transaction, right? And then these smart contracts, which are also immutable, no one can go back and change the rate for the farmer.
Okay.
So if the farmer gets 5-10% of every transaction or whatever number, there's no one who can go back and change it. And the farmer can see the whole chain of the transactions, but the farmer doesn't even have to worry about it because the smart contracts automate every transaction. It's like the second there's a transaction, the supply chain, the money instantly goes to the farmer.
Okay.
On top of that, there are two things. The farmer or the supply chain with the blockchain, every point in the supply chain can be geotagged. So that means I'm a farmer in India. I enter my transaction from the farm. You can take a Google map reading and lock it into the blockchain. I know where it's coming from.
Okay.
And so every time there's a transaction, you can see it all the way to Dubai, right? So what's really cool about this is that no one can lie about where it's coming from.
Easy traceability.
So I've talked about this before. There's this thing about saffron, for example. So apparently in the saffron world, the saffron from Kashmir is supposed to be the best. Like for chefs, that's what they want. There are businesses in Iran taking their saffron there and saying it's Kashmiri saffron on their packaging.
Okay.
So if I'm a chef and I want to make sure that it's coming from Kashmir, if you have a farmer, a supply chain with the geotagging at every point, I know it's really from there. So full traceability. And this whole traceability movement is happening more and more, right?
Yeah.
And it has to do with like these regulations coming in from the EU and America for a start, and hopefully here.
Yeah.
Now, aside from that, the farmer doesn't have to get paid out in crypto. Okay? All these transactions can be locked into blockchain, and when the farmer gets paid out, they can get paid out in their local currency.
Okay.
Right? So people get confused and scared, and they're like, oh, well, like crypto. I'm like, no, you can use the technology.
You don't need
just
to
like you can use HTML for a website.
Yeah.
And all of these great things can happen. Okay.
Okay.
Now, the other piece is that you can use blockchain combined with satellite AI to show that carbon is real in the ground in real time. You don't need to see every second that your carbon's real.
Yeah.
But you can, with a combination of satellite and blockchain technology, and this geotagging concept, you can read the land for the carbon once a week, twice a month, whatever. You could do it once a month. This is massive.
So is that what like carbon credit is called? Because you mentioned that before.
Yeah. So you can use you get like a baseline read of the land.
Okay.
With the satellite, and you get soil testing done, right? You have someone physically go and test the soil.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of soil testing data out there, especially for Africa, which is really cool. So, yeah, what happens is you get that baseline, and then you can keep reading the land like I said, every week, every month, whatever interval people decide on, and you can see it's still there. So the biggest challenge with the carbon markets since the start, like 30 years ago, no one knows if the carbon is real. It's not a regulated market.
Okay.
Voluntary carbon is really not regulated, and they're trying, but they're, it's a massive challenge, and it's kind of like the crypto world. Like you have to know what you're getting into. You have to really understand how to know if something's real. And the biggest players in the carbon world who are supposed to be taking care of this issue have not been doing the best job, as we've seen in the media over like the past 18 months.
Yes.
Right. So, yeah, with that combination of these technologies, you can use AI as a part of this. You can prove that carbon is in the ground, and that has not been accomplished in the past.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
And it's a threat to the industry. It's threatening because
I'll just show
a lot
the
of
true
people
colors. Yeah.
and businesses have made money off of lies. Okay.
Ooh, okay.
And the other piece is that over the years, like you have this challenge where companies would go to people, especially in the global south, where that's like the front lines of the climate crisis and the food crisis. Not only can you show if the carbon's real, but you can show if the farmers or the indigenous tribes were paid or not. A lot of times, like these companies have gone to these people and these communities that have nothing. They say, hey, we want to take your carbon. We'll pay you. Here's a contract. We'll be back in a year or 3. And they never show up. And I don't know the numbers, but this has happened. People have made millions off of convincing people in the rainforest.
Them. Yeah.
Like, hey, we're going to help you. I was at Climate Week in New York last September. A woman came up from Brazil, and she got up in the middle of this room of American investors and said, there's a company that's been mentioned in all of the big tech press over the past year and did a huge raise. And we were working for this company that shall remain nameless.
Yeah.
And the funds were supposed to get to us and to prepare us with all these different things for like taking care of a carbon project in the Brazilian rainforest, but also including like equipment for fire prevention and training if fire happens, right? And she said the money never really got to us. They threw us peanuts.
Oh, wow.
Way less than they're supposed to. And then fires ripped through the region and where our carbon project was located, and we didn't have the tools or the training that they promised us.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
This is still happening. So yeah, this whole thing about traceability, this can be, blockchain isn't the answer for everything, neither is AI, but you can solve a lot of issues with transparency.
How open do you think they are? Because you said it is a threat to them that now you can't see if carbon is real. So do you think that governments or regulations are more open to using this? Do you see maybe in the future? Or do you think they're just going to still stay away because it's almost like a threat and they don't want like people to really know what's going on in the industry?
I think governments are very open to it. I think a lot of governments are.
Yeah.
Especially the ones that see the consequences.
Yeah.
In their backyard.
Yeah.
Right. America's another story. But I think this government here in the UAE is way more open. There's that challenge of education. They don't fully understand that this is possible. I mean, honestly, that carbon pilot that I advised for Brazil, I'm sorry if I didn't talk about it enough, but I got to advise like pretty much the world's first case study of this combination of blockchain and AI and soil sampling.
Okay.
To benefit and pay smallholder farmers in Brazil, right? So the problem is, one, we're in the early days and a lot of people don't even know it's possible. Two, there aren't enough companies in the industry that are actually doing this. Like, we need more manpower. We have enough people that understand it, but we need more manpower. We need more funding. So it needs to rapidly scale.
Okay. And what about the education part or the openness for the smallholder farmers to take in these technologies? Do you also provide education to them before they use, or how do you look for them and how do you approach them?
So India is an epicenter for agri-tech right now. India is a great place to reach people quickly. There's a reason they call it the grapevine. It's really easy to network and find the right people. And farmers are desperate. They're feeling it. Farmer suicide is very high in India.
Exactly.
Right?
Okay.
Farmer suicide is a whole other thing, but it is global between America, Europe, India. It's all over, and it's going to continue with what's happening. So, yeah, I guess they are experiencing desperation, and there are a lot of politics. So when you go to farmers and you find a collective, for example, this works really well with collectives where they've come together. The Farmers Collective that I mentioned has 20,000 farmers. They'll have to come through one hub and bring their food in and register it, and then it gets trucked out. Some of it gets shipped to Europe, But pretty much once you have the technology built, these farmers were getting trained by locals within 3 to 5 days at the most. And that's it. So it's high tech. It's totally advanced. Sounds super complicated, but once you have it,
easy to adopt.
It's as easy as training somebody how to use Kareem.
Okay.
So one of the problems is people have, this is crazy technology. It's going to take so long. No, not really. And you know what? Everything's been built now, pretty much. Most things have been built. Another piece to this is with supply chains and supporting the Global South, it's going out to these collectives and making sure that they get hooked into the global market.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
You need the infrastructure and honest people in the middle to make sure that a collective in Uganda can get its produce to the UAE, for example. The biggest challenge in all that is that you have these middlemen who have been around for ages making a lot of money, like blowing the price of food up, and they're not going to tell you how much they're making at the end of the day between like port to port and then getting to like restaurants or the supermarket here. There's a hole. So that's why blockchain is a threat, because it will take their profits.
Okay.
But that's a big part of why the farmers are suffering. It's a big part why their profits with these case studies went up 700 to 900%, because they cut out the middlemen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So I know we're speaking about a lot of the challenges, but I want to shed light on more of like the opportunities and the positivities that are maybe been coming up for the past few years, or you hope to see in the next few years.
I'm, again, like, I can't say it enough. Like, I'm really excited to see what's happening here. And even within Saudi, there's a lot of positivity coming from this region right now. I truly believe the greatest volume of investment for impact, supply chain, food security, climate, that it's coming from this region right now.
Okay.
With the little that I've seen. And, I'm not behind every closed door, but I understand some of the deals that have been happening here, and it's very exciting. That gives me a lot of hope. I'm really excited to be here. I'm super grateful. And I'm really looking forward to seeing like how it evolves here over the next 5 to 10 years. So that's really exciting. And I really wish more people outside of the Middle East could understand what's happening here right now. And even with my criticism of COP28, which is going to happen for every COP because I'm critical of the industry, right? I was so happy to see a lot of Westerners, a lot of Americans come here and be completely surprised, right? I've been coming to this region for the past 20 years of my life. Like, I love this part of the world for the things that people don't understand outside of this region. And to see Americans come here for the first time, they're like, oh my God, what did I miss? Like, welcome. And you're like, it's one of the best kept secrets in the world. It's not fully a secret, but most Americans don't. For example, that's just one country that I'm from, right?
Yeah.
They don't understand what's happening here. Like, they don't understand like why I stay here, why I'm inspired.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was really happy to see that. And I think that will be revealed globally more and more over the years to come. What I see in Africa, what I'm excited about for Africa is that there's a lot of innovation for agritech coming out of places like Kenya. I was just in Morocco last September. They've got a big agricultural university there now that has been operating for like 3-4 years. And you have this whole wave of like youth that's like really taking this in Africa and becoming experts that you don't get to hear about, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it's happening. And I really believe that a lot of the solutions to these greater challenges are coming from Africa now and will continue to. They will grow. It's just not everybody's getting to hear about it, but I hope that I can use my platform to share the stories of those leaders. So
awesome. I'm just going to switch gears for a second. And we have this thing for this initiative called the Fem Forward, and March is coming soon. I just wanted to ask you, as a woman pioneering in the field of climate technology and sustainability, what unique perspectives or challenges do you encounter or have you encountered? And what advice would you offer to other women seeking to make an impact in this place, just like you?
Yeah, it's definitely challenging to be a woman working in this field of innovation. For me, the biggest challenge is making sure that women leaders actually get the funding and the support that they need. And once they get the support and they're into their journey, right? It's not about just the financial support. It's about like the mental, like spiritual, communal support. It's hard to be a woman working in these industries, right? And it's many industries, like they're very male dominated. Like this is the world that we live in. But it's been so hard for me on my own journey. I work with mostly men. I work with some really great men who believe in me.
Okay.
But along the way, like I've had to deal with things like sexual harassment in the workplace. I've had to deal with men talking down to me and just assuming that I don't know anything about finance or business because of the body that I was born into. And it's really hard because when you don't have a lot of people believing in you, you have to really go to yourself and becoming extremely thick and strong, like thick-skinned, right? But having that community of women who have been through it is so important, and it's something I wish I had more of, but it's okay. It's working out for me. But I think it's like, find your women for sure. Find your tribe, which is, will include good men. But, it's also that you have to learn that like this life is short and you can't let people get in your way. And if there are people in your world that don't serve you, no matter if they're a man or a woman, you have to really learn how to sift through the weeds. Okay.
All right.
Doesn't mean that everybody is perfect, because no one is, but like it's learning how to say no, when to say no. Right. And we have grown up in this world, like no matter what country you're from, where like girls are automatically programmed that we don't know what to do with money. We don't know how to invest. We don't know how to be entrepreneurs. That's not true.
Definitely not true.
So it's a reprogramming that needs to happen on a global scale, and it's starting, and that's why we're seeing all these institutions crumbling and a rearranging of the guards, because like the feminine is coming in now, right? But it's causing a wave. It's causing disruption, which is good. This time is very scary, but it's also very exciting because of that. So look at this country. Like I heard that, I think it's like, 50% of startups now are women founders? I could be wrong, but I heard some amazing numbers. Like, wow. And there are a lot of women entrepreneurs getting funding now in Saudi, to numbers I can't quote off the top of my head right now. But when I heard that too, it's like it's not happening anywhere else.
Let's go. Yeah, that's very powerful. Well, thanks for sharing that. This is just the last question, and we're wrapping up the episode, but it was really lovely having you here, Erin.
Thank you.
You're joining us at the Gulfood Inspire Conference in February. So can you just tell us a little bit more about your panel session and what can we expect, and what are you excited for at Gulfood?
So the panel that I'm a part of will be talking about technology, innovation, financial innovation for supply chains, and, addressing the food crisis, right?
Yeah.
And, addressing food security.
Yes.
And I'm super excited. Like I met some of my fellow panelists yesterday, and they're real experts. And it's funny because like I've been on a lot of panels. Yeah. And people are happy to hear these stories, but I can see in their eyes that they're like, I don't know what this is like. It sounds really great, but I still don't know what she's talking about. And when I met these two women panelists yesterday, both of them knew what I was talking about. It's like, oh, God.
Thank God.
And it's like
such a relief.
I've never been so excited for a panel before, because I'm like, oh, yeah, they get me. This is going to be great. And I'm just excited to be at this conference and meet people from all around the world. And, like anytime I go to a conference like this, like I regain my inspiration, because you can't hold it every day. Like it's hard. It's hard to be an innovator. So like getting out to these types of conferences, it's really great. And the thing about the difference for me, like COP28 was great, but like because of the media attention for climate, I know people and companies getting in Time Magazine now, Rolling Stone, like all these different places for climate. Like it's becoming too Hollywood for me. I'm like, we're not there with the supply chains and food security yet. And that's nice in a way because I don't think I'm going to see the ego at this conference. You don't have Rolling Stone showing up to report about these things. So I'm kind of looking forward to that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're so excited to have you on stage in February. I think there's 9 days now left. So pretty soon. Well, thank you so much for coming on the Less Chew podcast, Erin. It's really, really lovely having you and getting all the insights from you in all the innovation, technology, supply chain, the good and the bad. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this podcast and the conversation here. I just want to put it out there that if you're part of a corporation, someone who's looking to invest, if anything today was relevant and it's ringing some bells and you want to learn more, I'm always happy to help just with a conversation, with an intro call. I do advisory for implementing these technologies. And I also support investors who want to make a difference with their money while still making a profit. So any of these things, even if you're a woman who just needs some help because you're feeling alone out there on the edge as a trailblazer in this world, like please contact me through LinkedIn. No problem. I love having calls with people. And if you live in Dubai, I'm happy to have a coffee.